I could not be in Sunset Boulevard on Broadway because I have too many zits on my face.
Pores. Like, you can't get that close to me, please.
Hi everyone, welcome back to Off to Broadway, the podcast where we deep dive into anything and everything musical theater. I'm Tara.
I'm Stefania.
And in today's episode, we're talking all about Sunset Boulevard. I was like, are they the same? They are the same. Mine just has like a giant fingerprint in it.
No,
but
mine is like wet and has fingerprints all over it. I also have this one.
Just prefer this.
You know what? It's kind of nice that the cover, if we really wanted, we could rip it off and have a beautiful, clean cover underneath.
I know. No fingerprints, no nothing.
But yeah.
And I also have the show cup.
You have the show cup. My show cup is somewhere else, but I do have a show cup. What I will say is, like, the playbills, especially when they're all black like this, and then you have to, like, use a claw to carry it home at night, and you're, like, sweaty, they all have this on them.
Yeah.
So I have this one that's, like,
by the time this episode is released, I'm pretty confident the legacy playbills are over now, so did you catch them all, like, in Pokemon, or did you just end up with the one that you got? There were two, I think there were only two that they were giving out that night. The one, both of them that you have. I do like the white one. It's kind of fun. Although we hate that font.
Yeah, I was not a fan of this style, as I said to the Anne Juliet usher, being like, I hate that one. So I was a brat. But Sunset Boulevard was one of the shows that really did not give with these, if you will.
No.
It's fine. They were in previews, and it's not so different from their regular logo. Yeah. But, you know, they were not very inspired with the legacy playbill covers.
Yes. Okay, so a pre-warning, I'm pretty confident this is going to be a long episode, so enjoy the ride.
It's also 10 o'clock for us.
Yeah, it is. It's also November 1st when we're recording this. Not that that's going to change anything because the show is already open, but the cast recording just came out last week. We've both, I'm sure, been listening to it, as has all of the internet. And as of today, it was announced that Patti LuPone is seeing Sunset next week, so that's very exciting news on all fronts. We'll be talking about her a bit in this episode as well. But we're not just going to talk about this current revival that's on Broadway. We're kind of going to talk about Sunset Boulevard as a whole. So with that, Steph, what was your previous relationship, if any, to Sunset Boulevard?
If you'd asked me this question 2 years ago, my answer would be I had no previous relationship with Sunset Boulevard. All I knew was that Glenn Close had done it on Broadway and that Patti LuPone had been fired. But I barely knew what it was about at all. I knew it was about like an aging actress. But beyond that, I really knew nothing. Now, if you asked me a month ago, I would say
I think a little more than a month ago.
Like a few months ago, I would say all I know is about the walk outside. Like, I've seen every angle of the West End walk. I'm obsessed with it. I've watched all angles. I was like closely following the West End production that was happening and had seen pictures and videos of it. But truly, I didn't know the plot until I read a Wikipedia summary the week before we went and saw it on Broadway. It was one of my most anticipated shows, and I had heard such amazing things, but it wasn't one where I was like delving deep into the music or the story beforehand. Like, I was unfamiliar with the music completely before going. Mm-hmm. Tara, what about you?
Sort of similar. I did know that it was like an Andrew Lloyd Webber musical, and that like, because I've heard him talk about it when he was married to Sarah Brightman, however many years ago that was, who's now currently starring, I don't know if it's currently, but in the recent like times has just played Norma Desmond in Australia. And then I knew that it took place in Los Angeles because of the title of the musical, and I knew that it was based on a like film noir movie. I was talking to my parents about this recently, and they've never seen the movie, but they're very familiar with like the Carol Burnett like parody of Norma Desmond, where she does this like scene where it's just all about her eyes, because Gloria Swanson is all about the eyes in the movie, and so is Nicole, to be fair.
No, for sure.
So my mom was like very familiar with that like parody version. I still haven't seen it, but like that's what she knew of Sunset Boulevard when I talked to her, which is funny because obviously there's like a real movie and a musical that's been around for a long time, but like that's what stuck out. But yeah, same as you. I think it was when it was announced, Because it was kind of, was it the same season for the Olivier's as like Cabaret, or were they two different seasons?
I think it was this most recent Olivier's, so it would have no Cabaret would have been before,
the year before. But I knew that it was kind of similar in like stylizing productions. They had just done this like super like stylized Cabaret, and then they were doing this like very different take of Sunset Boulevard. So that's kind of when I was starting to follow. And then like when it was announced that Nicole Scherzinger was going to be in it, and then obviously like when they said that it was coming to Broadway, we jumped at the opportunity to see this as soon as we possibly could. But that's it. And the only thing that we know since seeing it is that we both watched the movie.
Yes, we did both watch the movie.
Which I said to you yesterday or whatever day it was. And I do I would recommend, like, as you said, you read a Wikipedia summary before going in. Mm-hmm. The movie does give you context, a lot of context for the very minimal staging that you see in this production. So if you haven't seen it and you know nothing about Sunset Boulevard, I actually would recommend, like, reading a plot summary, possibly watching the movie, even watching the trailer of the movie, because it does help you figure out and, like, fill in the pieces. Because I felt, for me, I was filling in those pieces, like, after the fact. Which is fine, but it would have been nice to like know a little bit more in advance.
Let's say we were walking home after, and you were saying at the ending, you're like, did she make the movie? Did she not make the movie? And I was like, well, I read on Wikipedia, so I know what was happening. No, she didn't make the movie. Reporters are coming. You know, the cameras are coming, and she's kind of gone mad. And like that ending, if you don't know that's happening, maybe some people will get it, but I think without some of that context,
for this specific production.
Which,
if you're listening to us in Australia, you can go as is to see Sarah Brightman.
No, and I do think it's interesting because it sounds like most previous productions of this musical have been very like luxurious and have these like opulent sets, creating the house on Sunset Boulevard the way, like, similar to how it is in the movie, and you have to kind of create that character, and this version obviously does not do that at all. And I find it very interesting. I mean, let's talk about the movie briefly here. So you just finished it before we came on here. What did you think about this movie? I actually thought it was really great. I don't frequently watch a classic film, sometimes, but not always. And I really, really thought they did. I really thought this movie was really excellent, and I really enjoyed just, you know, the character of Norma Desmond, and watching it. You had said this, I think, but like she as a character just like sings, even if she is not singing. Like she like leaps out of the screen, and she's so fully formed, and so you can definitely understand why people were drawn to adapt it in different ways, and why, you know, there are quotes from this movie that are still said, even if you don't know what they're from. Like, you know, she has some lines like, the
first, like, at the beginning, right? When he says like, you used to be big, and she's like, I am big. I'm still big. It's the pictures that got small.
Exactly. Like, these are things that are still like, you know, her lines and her delivery and her mannerisms are just so like larger than life, and kind of iconic in that way. And even just the cinematography and the way like the camera moves, and also the way that, you know, this movie blurs the lines between reality and fiction, in a way that I think this staging of the musical also kind of blurs a lot of lines, but that there are people in this movie playing themselves, and then people in this movie like playing characters. Hedda Hopper was playing herself. Cecil B. DeMille playing himself. The people she plays like bridge with were also silent movie stars.
Oh, film stars? Oh, that's
film
cool.
stars. Like one of them is Buster Keaton, and then a couple were others that like were names I didn't recognize, but were silent film stars. And the movie kind of like calls them has-beens. And I think like blurring that line between what is reality and what is fiction in this movie like works to great success. And I'm imagining it would have worked to even greater success when people might recognize what Cecil B. DeMille looked like without knowing in advance. Like, that's not someone who I knew it looked like, but knowing that line was so blurred in the creation of this movie, I think really, really lends itself well. I loved it.
I also thought it was interesting. I like you, I don't watch that many classic movies. I don't know the last time I've seen a movie that's in black and white. It's been a long time, but I was looking up this. It was nominated for like many Oscars, and one of the ones that it won was like art direction for black and white, which I think is so interesting.
Yeah.
Obviously that award
like
no longer exists.
No, I know.
But I like this movie would be nothing if it wasn't for Gloria Swanson as Norma Desmond. I have never seen her in anything, but I know the name very well of just like an old Hollywood actress. And then reading more about like the development of Sunset Boulevard and the musical and the movie and how involved she was and how much she gave to that character. There's a quote I think I read. It, Broadway.com literally today put out an article about Sunset Boulevard's like road to theater, which is very interesting. Give it a read if you haven't read it. I'll put it in the show notes. Yeah. But it's just very interesting to know that like it seems that anybody that like plays this character kind of really like digs their like nails into it and really like gets into the mind of Norma Desmond, who is at the end of the day a wild person.
Yes.
And I really think the last like 15 minutes of this movie is fantastic. Like the scene of him like falling in the pool to her just like standing in her backyard, like whispering to herself, I'm the greatest star, to like the reporters at the house and her walking down the stairs. And just to see, I don't know, I like, again, as I just said earlier of like, you should know context before you go. It was interesting to me watching it the other way because then I was like, oh, this characterization of Max is so different than what it is in the movie, or how similar I thought certain qualities of like Nicole and Gloria were. Like Joe is a totally different character, I feel.
Yeah, I agree.
Versus
Joe is I felt much like darker in the movie, almost like more sinister or more calculated.
Yeah, it's
than,
and like this
I thought.
And Betty has like a bigger role, but the other characters are like really side characters in this, which like they are a little bit in the musical too, but it's just it's interesting. Poor Artie. Yeah. But I can see again, like specifically this version where like Jamie Lloyd pulled some of that inspiration from, because I feel like, especially the black and white, obviously, he really like honed in on that film noir aspect of the movie, whereas what you were saying earlier of like every other version is like so grand and so colorful and so like, I don't know, if this movie was actually in color, I'm sure it would be so like jewel toned and like big and like gold, like rich colors, whereas this version that we saw is the complete opposite of that. So it's very interesting looking at like a black and white movie and then seeing photos from like different productions of the musical to see like what happened here. What I thought was so interesting was when I was doing like a little bit of research on this was what I sent you the other day of like, this went through different composers before it landed like in Andrew Lloyd Webber's lap. And when I watched this movie, I was like, this has the Lord written all over it. Like, you know what I mean? Like, this is his show. It does. It's so, even that like scoring that was in the movie felt very similar to what we heard. I actually feel like they maybe reorchestrated. We know they reorchestrated, but a lot of those reorchestrations sound more like the movie than like previous musical versions. So yeah, it's so interesting. Like Sondheim had his hands on this, like Kander and Ebb had their hands on this, and then it ended up with ALW.
No one can do the camp that Sunset Boulevard requires better than Andrew Lloyd Webber.
No.
Like I do think like this movie is camp. Like,
oh yeah. And this musical is camp.
This musical is camp, and even this Jamie Lloyd production on Broadway right now, camp. Like, I really think I was shocked how much I laughed. Shocked how much I laughed. So much comedy. I was listening to a podcast about the movie Sunset Boulevard earlier today, and they were saying this a lot of times considered like a black comedy, and I was like, yes, I see it because of kind of the absurdity of some of the characters or the situations that are happening. Like it even is just comedic.
The facial expressions,
like, yes, like the exaggeratedness, the over the top. Yeah, it almost feels like a parody, but I actually don't know. Like, I actually feel like Gloria Swanson really treads like a great line of not feeling like parody, and not feeling over the top.
It was funny
being
because
over the top.
as I was reading about, like, so they tried to do a version of a musical that, like, she was gonna be in, and but she had been on Broadway before and was, like, burned by her last Broadway gig, so she wasn't sure that she wanted to go back to Broadway, but she didn't want to say goodbye to this character, like, in general. So she was working with, like, people to get this version of a musical or a review or whatever on stage, because, as we were saying, like, it's so obvious that, like, this character wants to sing and, like, say more than just what's written on the page. And I believe it was supposed to be called Sunset, and it got so far to this point that they were, like, actually about to put something on, or they had put something on for a very small audience, and Paramount was like, you can't do this. So, like, the rights, or they needed to pay, and she was putting up money herself. Like, the Broadway.com article says at the time she paid, like, $20,000, which in today's time would be like $200,000. And she just, like, couldn't afford what Paramount was asking. So it was like, hands tied, I'm done with this. But her version, she wanted Betty and Joe to end up together at the end so that Norma doesn't seem like a villain. And so I was
romantic.
Like, oh, wow. No, he doesn't die. He doesn't die.
No, I understand. No, I know. Like,
but it's still, like, about Norma.
It's still about Norma. Like, she it almost feels like she was, like, protective of that character. She didn't want people to hate her.
Yes.
But, like, this is what makes me love her, you know? Like,
I know.
This is what makes me love Norma. Like, she felt so strongly. She killed him, you know?
Yeah.
She killed that man. Spoiler alert for Sunset Boulevard.
I was going to say.
70-year-old movie.
Yeah, this episode will be full of spoilers, including, like, the walk and everything. So if you have not seen this production and you're about to see this production, like, click off and come back. Or here we are to spoil a bunch of stuff for you. So let's actually talk about this production. We saw this almost a month ago now, which
I know
feels crazy.
It was, I believe it was October 5th, Saturday night. We bought tickets way back in, like, April, something like that, March.
Yeah.
And it was the kind of about 1 week into previews we saw it. So, which was very fun. I think I like to see things in previews, especially when it's, like, a West End transfer, so
yeah, it's
I don't think a lot is changing. It's in good shape. They're just tweaking certain things for the audience and for tech purposes, but for the most part, it's in very good shape. It's at the St. James Theatre. We were kind of house right, I would say, stage left. I thought our view was pretty good. We didn't feel the need to, like, switch at intermission, which we sometimes do if we're a little obstructed, but it was okay. And to be fair, the stage is fairly empty for most of the show. So the only thing that really fills it is that screen. So you're not really, like, blocked by anything.
In terms of a set piece, I think there's a chair.
Yeah, some chairs. The screen.
A water cooler, and that's it.
You don't even, the water cooler's backstage. You only see that one on camera.
It's like a chair and a desk. I think when she starts, she's, like, sitting at a desk back there, but that's it.
Yeah, but it's not on stage. And there's, like, some lights at certain points. Like, when you go to Paramount, there you have, like, stage lights and whatever. But other than that, really empty stage. I'd heard people call this production minimal. And after watching it, I'm like, that is the furthest word I would use to describe this production. The stage, again, is empty, but I did not find it minimal at all. It felt so full and so grand with just the orchestrations, the performances, the cameras, the way
the screens,
it allowed you to get so close and so intimate with the characters' performances, and some certain moments where some characters felt so, like, larger than life up there and were, like, surrounding you. And also just the world that it inhabited felt so grand that, like, minimal is the last word I would use to describe this production.
So with it being so grand and so rich and so everything, let's talk about performances. I think we'll save our Norma till the very end because she deserves all of the talk time, I think. So there's really not that many people to speak on here. Let's start with, I guess, like, Betty, because she's kind of, like, our main character, but, like, not a main character at all, but she has a later bow. So Grace Hodgett Young plays Betty. I thought she was good, but if we're going to talk about, like, a weak character in the show, I think it's Betty. And I don't think that that's her fault. I think she's just, like, very underwritten. But I would also say she's, like, barely useful in the movie. So maybe it's just the character.
She's very much a plot device. And also, thinking about this movie written, you know, in the 40s and the 50s, the idea of, like, this young kind of ingenue woman.
Yeah.
I just don't know if they had like a lot of thoughts for her, and she kind of is like the catalyst for Norma's jealousy and Norma's kind of like, you know, final descent. So she's necessary to the plot, but I agree, like she could be a bit more like fleshed out.
The other thing too is that I don't know how you felt about this, because we actually haven't really, like, we've talked about it, or we have not talked about it. But I don't think that her chemistry with Tom Francis was enough for me to be like, oh, she's leaving her husband for this man. I just didn't see
her
enough
fiance
of them,
Artie.
I just didn't see like enough of like anything that gave me any sense of like romance for when they have that like big kiss moment very close to the end when they're writing the script that she's obsessed with, like this movie that Dark Matter?
Dark
Shadows? No, it's not Dark Shadows, something
Dark
like
Shadow?
that.
No, it can't be
not
that.
Not the baseball movie, the one after the baseball movie. She's like so obsessed. Dark Windows.
You're right. You're Dark Windows.
She's like so obsessed with the script, and the way that she like acted towards the script, I'm like, where is this like obsession for Joe? Like, I just don't see how like this kiss is earned to me. But it's a very minor critique in the grand scheme of things.
It is. I think, like, talking back to it, like, I think like Tom Francis and Nicole, like they're
okay, but also like Tom Francis number
Tom
one.
Francis. No, I know, but like they're like they're doing something, like something is happening there. So you're kind of like.
I don't care about this side plot.
Betty, what are you doing here? But when he did kiss Betty, I'm like the dumbest man in the world. Like, I can't. This idiot. I definitely agree that she's like a little bit underwritten, and I wish we knew more about her. I do just think because this is very much a show from Joe's perspective, that you're only getting kind of Betty through Joe's eyes, and there's also kind of a lot happening. And you're just like, we just honestly can't spend enough time with her. We cannot really hang out with her very much because Joe is always being like pulled back to the mansion. So you only see her in like short bursts. But I felt that way a little bit in the movie as well. Yeah. I didn't feel like I was really feeling like the Betty Joe love there either. But I didn't
I was going to say, I actually felt less in the movie because I was like, these two have spent zero time together and now we're kissing. Like, how did this happen?
Like, we're writing,
He goes to the New Year's Eve party. They have this like moment where their faces are this close together, and then they don't kiss. And the next scene, it's like, I'm leaving
my fiance. He's not you. What?
But maybe that's very like film noir that we're not like exposed to. Like maybe this happens a lot in these type of movies. A convention of
the genre.
What I will say is that when they are writing the script, when he's like sneaking out of the mansion to go write with her, there was a water cooler scene. And I was like, oh my god, there was a water cooler scene in the musical.
I saw the water cooler.
So that was great.
No, I agree. When I saw that water cooler, I was like, wow, Jamie Lloyd. He referenced the water cooler.
Really did that, yeah. Anything else on her, or should we move to next?
No, my other critique is, why are the socks so high? Why are the socks right under the knee? The understudy had a shorter sock.
She did, but also what we will say is, Grace, your brows never looked better.
So good. Like I was like,
in that close-up shot, so good.
I would be stressed to have them in my face all day, every day.
I could not be in Sunset Boulevard on Broadway because I have too many zits on my face.
Pores. Like, you can't get that close to me, please.
In 4K.
Like, it is clear. And
it is crystal clear.
Yeah, and something I noticed, particularly with her, with everyone, but no wigs in this show. I think because they're doing, like, lots of close-ups. Like, she's got the two kind of boxer braids down. And even when the understudy went on for Betty, she also did the braids. It's the ensemble member who had the little pigtails.
Yes, I know exactly who it is. She was wearing the sweat shorts as the ensemble member.
Yeah, she's wearing the sweat shorts. And also, if you watch any of the walk videos, it's she holds the door open.
Yes,
if you've seen any of the walk videos. But
also,
she's the Betty understudy.
To that point about the hair, makeup also very minimal on the ensemble, which is, again, like... For cameras that are so close in your face, like, drop the foundation, drop the concealer. Like, what are you guys using? I gotta know.
I think they really, like, didn't want us to see, like, artifice, if that makes sense. Like, they really wanted us, when we're getting close, they they didn't want us to be like, oh, they're wearing stage makeup, or oh, that's a wig, or oh, whatever. Even they don't have the mics up at the head, they have the mics, off to the side, which is a Jamie Lloyd kind of thing.
Yes.
Like, some shows do that, but Jamie Lloyd specifically does not really love the mics on the
head mic, yeah,
in the hair. He likes them off the side, which again, like, is used in the show at a certain point. But yeah, very interesting. Should we move on to David? I was gonna say,
like,
Max?
our core three here.
The core four
is, well, Betty is like on the side, but then it's like Max, Joe, and Norma. I feel like are the core trio.
They're at the house. They're at the house in Sunset Boulevard.
David Thaxton, I mean, also a lot of these, a decent amount of them transferred from the West End production.
These four specifically were in the West End production, and then like, some of the ensemble, specifically like young Norma, the camera woman, who we'll talk about later.
Icon.
Love her.
I will say, me, like, listening to the show is like, this man has such a beautiful voice. He could be a Phantom of the Opera.
He was a Phantom of the Opera.
So David Thaxton won the Olivier for this role. The character of Max in this show, which I was saying a bit earlier in the movie, totally different. Max is very, in the musical, like, he's super stoic, but then, like, changes a bit when he speaks with Norma. I'm thinking specifically, and it is so phenomenal on the cast recording. I believe it's, like, the second last song. It's when Norma is, like, talking to the reporters, and David Thaxton screams, lights, camera, action. And it, like, I felt it, like, in my body when he said it, because that whole 25 minutes is pretty iconic on stage. The whole, like, descent into madness, Joe dying, and then, like, this final scene. I believe the song is in Max, Where Am I?, which is, like, the second last song on the cast recording. I felt his performance was, first of all, voice of an angel, my God. But it's funny that they use him, the way that they use him with the cameras, because every time Joe is somewhere else, we see him, like, appear on the screen to, like, call him back to the mansion. So he's doing a lot of screen acting as well as, like, performing to the physical audience. But, like, great. He was great.
Yeah, very, very, like, straight man performance, like, monotone, kind of like, your classic, almost English butler performance. And then you kind of find out, details. How he ended up involved in this situation. Like, why is this man here? Why is he so loyal to Norma in that way?
He's also, he must be crazy. Like, he also has to be crazy.
It's gotta be. I was like, dude, what are you doing here?
Because
every time, like, you find something out, you're like, guys,
what?
We do not need to be in this situation. This is crazy.
Because he was a former director, but then, like, it wasn't clear to me in the musical. It was obviously clear in the movie. Like, was he married to her?
He was Norma's first husband.
Crazy. But he also, like, understands
like,
the situation. There's many, there's many scenes on this cast recording, and that's where you hear a lot of David Thaxton, like, speak as Max in this. And we find out that, like, he's been writing the fan mail. Like, he's also, like, her servant. Like, he does everything for her.
He's been feeding into this madness. Like, he hasn't been real with her. He's been, like, allowing her to believe that the people are waiting for her.
His song is the greatest star of all. Like, he is the one that feeds to her, you are the greatest star of all. That's why that final scene when he's screaming lights, camera, action, it's like he puts on that, like, previous director hat while this, like, crazy thing just happened. But he's also, like, feeling, like, the adrenaline of it. And, like, I don't know, I thought his ending performance was fantastic.
Like, even in his final moments, he's still, like, allowing her, not his final moments, but, like, the final moments of the show, like, he never, like, lets up in, like, this, like, playing pretend with her. He always just, like, will give her what she wants, what she needs. Like, he's, like, so loyal to a fault to her. Even, the jig is up at this point. Like, we're done. It's over. But he's like, no, you still deserve, you still want this.
Well, like, he has the moment to be able to say to her, like, we're not in a studio, but he chooses to be like, we're shooting the movie, we're doing the final picture. Like, he doesn't need to do that, but he does it for her. Like, he lives his life for her. So I don't know, I thought he was great in this. Very powerful, for sure. But he doesn't hold a candle to my number one, Tom Francis.
No. Who does hold a candle to Tom Francis? Also, that man born in, do you know what year he was born in?
Wait, we talked about this, but now I can't remember.
1999.
Amazing.
If you want to cry.
And he's also, we believe, dating the young Norma, who's in this cast.
Yes, Hannah Chamberlain, who also came over with the West End. Honestly, so the show opens on her, but she looks enough. She's beautiful. Stunning. She looks enough like Nicole that the audience loses their minds because they think it's her, which I think works so well. And from what I understand, when Mandy Gonzalez goes on, they don't have her hair curly. No, they use her. They use the exact same person, but they don't, because Mandy Gonzalez has her natural curly hair when she plays Norma, but they don't do anything with Hannah's hair, so she still looks like Nicole. So it's a little, people are like, okay, I guess, like, we're, you know, there's not quite that, like, parallel. Like, there are gorgeous moments when they are moving together, mirroring each other, or sometimes, like, Joe will pass young Norma and not old Norma. Like, they're used, like, in a really beautiful way, this young Norma. And I wonder if it would lose something if they weren't kind of, like, such good mirrors of each other. Yeah, that's true. That's a good point. But also, like, they could easily fix that, so I wonder. Yeah, I think they're just really committed to a no wig moment. They get out, like, the 1-inch curling wand and just, like, go spiral her hair. Do not do that to her. Do not do that to her. But anyway, back to Tom Francis. So, I, like, knew of him because I knew that he was a Romeo replacement in Anne Juliet. Mm-hmm. And if you were to tell me that, and if I were to see Anne Juliet, like, and this 2 days apart, I'd be like, you're joking that the same. Actually, we did see this one day apart. We did. Like, we did see that one day apart. Sorry. I can't imagine. But reverse, to be like, there's absolutely no way that this man is playing this man, because Tom Francis is a star. Like, no, I don't care, like, if he doesn't win the Tony Award for this. He won the Olivier for this. Mm-hmm. But, like, he will have a career in New York if he wants one after this, because to me, like, Nicole is doing something that's on an entire other level than everybody else, but he is carrying this entire show on his shoulders, and, like, so amazingly. Because this show is from Joe's perspective. It is from his perspective. He basically never leaves the stage. He is always on stage. He is narrating too. He is looking at the audience and, like, speaking straight to the audience sometimes. His American accent is funny sometimes. There was a moment in the cast recording I was like, oh, we both lost it here. Like, I think him and Betty, I was like, we've both lost it for a hot second. I can't remember exactly where it was, but I was like, we're not American, and that's okay. Yeah, that's fine. Yeah. But no, I think he's really, really excellent in this show. And it's so funny because he's so serious. Like, Joe is so serious. And there are very few moments where we get to see him, like, smile or laugh. But, like, the intensity with which he kind of moves through the show is so good. And, like, comparing it to the movie, it's so different. It really is different. Like, Joe in the movie has so much, like, swag to him. He's so confident in himself. He like he reads older in the movie, I think, than he read on like, in the musical. Yes. And in the musical, he really does feel like this young writer, which he's supposed to be. Yeah. And maybe it's just, like, casting, because, again, Tom Francis is, like, 25 now. So when he was doing it on the West End, 23, 24. But even, like, a Derek Klena, who did it, that was literally like, our first exposure to the song Sunset Boulevard was last year at the Kennedy Center. Him and his little, like, swim shorts. He's around 30-ish. Similar to Tom. Mm-hmm. Actually, he might read more like the other Joe. I don't know. It's hard to tell, honestly. It is hard. Yeah, and I wonder if it's just because it's in black and white, and, like, and also just the way people age has changed a lot, and just the way we perceive age, which we'll talk about when we get to Nicole, for sure, but just, like, the way age reads is different now than it was, let's say, 70 years ago when this movie was made. Also, I just think, like, when I was watching the movie, I was like, are they hooking up? Whereas, like, when I was watching, I assumed, but I was like, I don't know if we're getting that. Whereas I'm watching the movie and I was like, okay, we're hooking up. You know what I mean? Like, yeah. I was like feeling more of that like chemistry or like tension between them than I maybe was feeling like in the movie necessarily. And I think that might just be a product of the era with which it's made, what we're comfortable like showing on camera, or what we're able to show on camera at certain points.
In the movie, like
it cuts away to that first
before
kiss,
they even
right?
kiss. Yeah.
Yeah, like you assume, but then it like cuts away. Whereas like when Joe and Norma kiss in the musical, like
it's cinematic.
It's long, it goes like
there's
like,
also
okay, we get it.
There's also a moment in the cast recording, I don't remember the song, but she sings like "Let's Go to Bed." Whereas, like, that doesn't happen in the movie. Exactly.
Like, it's just made more explicit, which I think is helpful, because I was like, okay, we're getting it's getting very messy. It's getting really messy what's happening here.
Yeah. I think we'll save the Act 2 opener for when we talk about, like, the Jamie Lloyd of it all. But that is obviously his standout moment. And if they don't do it for the Tony Awards, I'm going to be upset. So
they did it at the Olivier's. He walked through the Olivier's.
But at the same time, I can't imagine that the Tonys don't want Nicole singing. So I don't know what we're going to get.
Okay, I'm picturing, like, whoever the host is for the Tonys is going to do the Sunset Walk to open the show.
It's going to be...
And then they'll do something else during the show.
That's good.
And like,
he'll be
Tom
out there,
will be there. He'll be there. Yeah. He'll be there.
That's good.
Like,
that's good.
Or maybe he'll start doing it and then like the host will take over. I don't know. But I think that's how we open the show.
They should also, because it's at Radio City again, it's an opportunity for them to like film this properly, like at all of the nominated show like
like it can
friends.
be a pre-tape. It can be a pre-tape.
Yeah, that's fine.
It doesn't need to be live like it is on stage every night.
Yeah.
Like have them walk through all of New York City.
No, that's
like,
fine.
Make it happen.
But regardless, like his performance, I feel, is so strong to me. I know there was like a lot. Remember when we were in New York, we were reading Reddit, obviously, and someone was like, "This man doesn't even crack a smile." I'm like, that's part of the character. Yeah. Like he's doing this characterization that he's chosen, and that really like holds itself all the way through until the end. That final like scene, the stage pictures are so incredible, and like. He bows in his underwear. Like, it's a whole moment for Tom Francis.
We're very happy. We're very happy there. No, and I think, like, everyone is so serious. There's not a lot of smiling in this show.
No.
And, like, so the few moments he does smile, like, thinking about the New Year's Eve party, him and Norma, kind of just this, like, private party, or...
he might be smiling a bit out of fear in that, because when he finds out that he's the only person invited, he's like, yikes.
Or even, you know, the top of Act 2... kind of the entr'acte before he goes outside.
Yeah.
You know, when we're not quite in character there, you're like, before like the Joe mask goes on, you see his own personality almost, because you're seeing everyone's kind of behind the scenes stuff. So like the moments you see him smile, like, but then he's so serious. I don't know. He's doing something like really, really strong. He is like plowing through and like carrying it. And everything else is happening around him. Like, Nicole's obviously giving this kind of insane performance, kind of in and out. And I've seen some people comment, they're like, this adaptation feels more like Joe's story than Norma's. And I was like, I kind of see it. I definitely kind of agree. Even the movie, though, was narrated by the character of Joe. Joe is dead, and he's still doing voiceover. I'm like, okay,
and then we, like, flash forward. Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
No, it's very interesting. I will say, again, we'll talk about it when we get to the Jamie Lloyd section, but, like, my favorite moment of Tom's is, like, right off the top, and he's not even saying anything. So he also, like I was saying about David Thaxton, he has a lot of on-camera acting and as well as on-stage acting. And, like, anyone that sees this that thinks that it's easy to flip from screen to stage acting, like, that is not easy for them to do. So he's giving a totally different performance on camera than he is on screen, and he's probably on camera the most of everybody. So it's very interesting.
In one pivotal moment. And I think, like, the shout out here goes to Shayna McPherson, who is, like, the main camera woman. And I was listening to Caroline Bowman on a podcast, and they were talking about,
she's the standby for everybody.
She's the Norma standby. She was saying she thinks she might never go on. And
well, she's going to be in Smash.
Well, she's leaving to go to Smash, but basically Mandy has first right of refusal. So if Nicole ever calls out, they go to Mandy first. And the
only time that she would go on to me is if it was like a mid-show.
Because she's like she's
there.
House.
Yeah.
Yeah, she's there in case something goes wrong. But yeah, apparently Mandy has first right of refusal, and then Caroline would go on if Mandy says no. So sure. but basically was saying that, like, Tom Francis and Shayna, they're like, it was pivotal to bring her from the UK because she's like, they like get each other, they like understand each other, they like work together. And again, especially like, you know, the sequence at the top of Act 2 where they're kind of like intimately working together. You don't see her, but like they are so intimately like creating this part of the show, like the two of them together. There's other people there, but like it's mostly just them two. And like so important that they had like two people who had like a lot of like trust with each other for
that's really
like, those moments. And
Mm-hmm.
I'm like, wow, love that. It reminds me of, on a tangent, but Greta Gerwig said Margot Robbie and the like dolly grip at Barbie were like best friends. So when they were filming certain things during Barbie, she's like, all actresses should be best friends with their dolly grip because like the work that they were doing is just like not something that strangers would be able to do. And I was like, that's so funny, something you wouldn't even think of. That, like,
as someone that works in TV, the crew are the most important people in the room. So I like fully agree with like everything that everybody is saying. Without the camera host relationship, it's nothing. There's nothing there. So it's very like, shout out to crews everywhere, but specifically on this show that's like doing the work with the
and
cameras.
she's so visible a lot of the times. Like she's on stage with them a lot. Like some people hold cameras at other points, but she's kind of the main camera person, and she takes her bow at the end, no camera. I love it. No, she's so good. She's slaying.
Okay, let's move on to the greatest star of all.
The greatest star. I'm ready
Nicole.
for my set. Nicole. Wow.
Do you want to start?
It's hard to talk about this because Nicole, like, I should have pulled it out. I have PCD, like the Pussycat Dolls CD, or is it Doll Domination? I don't know. I have the first one, PCD, I think. And I was listening to it before we went, and I'm like, these songs still hit. They're amazing.
Great. So good.
I don't need a man to make this happen.
I don't need a man.
To make it happen. And they all seem to be obsessed. The whole cast seems to be obsessed with buttons. Yes. Like, they're, like, always dancing to buttons, which cracks me up. And so I've been familiar with Nicole for 20 years of her work, of her voice. I've watched her judge many a reality television show.
Me too.
The Sing Off, X Factor, The Masked Singer. And the thing about it is her talent, her voice, is, like, pretty much unmatched. Like, nobody can do it like her. And yet the level of fame and the level of work she has done has not matched the level of talent that she has until now. But I only think the way that, let's say, someone like Gloria Swanson wasn't silent films, and this was a bit of like, not necessarily a comeback, but it was referencing her previous career in the movie. This show, like, or this performance, I feel can only be done by someone who has kind of been somewhat cast aside in the industry in the way that I think Nicole has been in ways. Obviously, she's very famous. She has a lot of money. Like, I'm not crying for her, but no, I seriously,
but like she's never
fine.
had that break. Like this.
Yes,
is,
she's never.
And she's what, 46?
Yeah, she's 46 years old, which is not old at all. And some people are like, it's too young, but like
it's not too young.
It's not too young.
She looks amazing.
This is kind of the age. She does look amazing. But this is kind of the age, like, Gloria Swanson was 50 in the movie. Like, Patty and Glenn were in their, like, late 40s.
The only difference in any of this is that
musical?
There's that one lyric change that I don't even know what song it is, but Joe normally sings to her, like, something along the lines of, you're 50, why are you acting like you're 20? And in this production, he says, you're 40, why are you acting like you're 20?
I think he said you're 50. I actually think he said you're 50.
It's
he
changed.
Said you're 40?
Yeah.
It's changed?
Yeah. It's one of the, like, few lyric changes, and then there's 2 cut songs, but, like, that's it.
Yeah.
Because, like, the last person that played on Broadway is Glenn Close, and obviously, like...
Glenn's been doing it for, years. She's still doing
Glenn
it.
now? Let's look.
75? How old is Glenn Close?
She's doing that. She says she's doing that movie, so get ready for Glenn. She's 77.
Who's gonna play? She's 77. Who's gonna play Joe with Glenn?
I don't know. Like, don't get me wrong. If I were to see Glenn Close in a production of Sunset Boulevard, I'd be like,
oh yeah,
straight up icon. Like, she's an icon. But like, no one is singing the score like Nicole sings.
Can you imagine Glenn? I've never heard Glenn Close sing, but I can't.
There's
imagine
a cast recording.
Like
There's a cast recording out.
I did not delve into that.
I listened to Patty's a little bit. I've listened to some of Glenn's, but I can tell you for a fact that no one's giving a performance of As If We've Never Said Goodbye like Nicole is giving a performance 7 times a week on Broadway.
I listened to it in my car the other day and I cried.
Same.
Nicole singing it. I was like, oh, okay, didn't expect this to happen right now. But no, I really think, and this goes to, for honestly, this whole production is in conversation with our preconceived notions of Nicole, of this show, of, you know, Broadway, of theater. Like, it expects you to come in with knowledge and is like working on top of that knowledge, which is why I think you should watch the movie or read a summary at least before seeing this, because the staging, I think, expects you to know what's going on and is like commenting. You know, I think, like, speaking on Jamie Lloyd, for right now, all we've seen him do is, like, reinterpretations or revivals of things. And I think a lot of what he's doing is expecting you to, you know, come in with knowledge of the text and then try to dismantle it. Yeah. And I think that's what he's doing here, especially with the casting of someone like Nicole. And he's expecting you to know that Nicole was a pussycat doll, who's, you know, now like kind of a reality TV judge / host / personality,
who's also like picking up on the like intonation of like Gen Z and like millennial. Like, I've seen so many comments being like, why does she speak this way? I'm like, because this is the 2024 version of Sunset Boulevard. It's not the 1950 version of Sunset Boulevard. So
right, and it's like
you're expected to know that
when she does like the dance as Salome or the faces or saying those things, she is hearkening back to the time when Nicole personally was popular, was like at her peak, at her most famous, during PCD, during Doll Domination. Should have brought PCD just for her to sign, but you know, whatever.
Well, the stage door experience was a whole
stage door.
Should have brought my whatever year circus ticket where the Pussycat Dolls opened for Britney Spears. Like, iconic.
Yeah, I need... So, but yeah, like...
When I watched The Search for the Pussycat Dolls and was like... or whatever, the Girlicious, whatever they were doing. And, like, she came in as a judge one time. Like,
she loves to judge a reality show.
We've been there for Nicole.
We have been there for Nicole. No, I... Like, truly, you know...
Except for you haven't been there for Nicole when you didn't know that she was the mother in Moana.
I did not know that. I'm sorry. I did not know that she was the mother of Moana. And I apologize, Nicole. No, but this show, like, specifically, like, during that, you know, sequence at the beginning of Act 2, specifically references the Pussycat Dolls.
Yes.
They want you to know. They don't want you to forget the real world and, like, the real life positions of the people you're seeing on stage, specifically Nicole. And they want you to use that knowledge of her to inform this story. And even, like, a lot of people say, like, she looks young. She does look young. She looks amazing. But it's also, like, we're also using her to comment on how quickly women are kind of discarded in the entertainment industry and moved along from, and always looking for, you know, a better thing or a younger thing or something more beautiful, in a way that, like, men are not treated in this way in the entertainment industry. And I think, like, I don't know if you need to replace Nicole. How do you do that?
Well,
and I also don't know what else can Nicole do on Broadway after this.
Okay, so this is literally, as soon as the show ended, I was like, I love this so much for her. I love that she's getting such a chance to show her talent to everybody. But I'm sad for her because I literally don't think she can do anything else. This is her one and done.
This is so iconic. Obviously, we know she's done Cats on the West End, which is a whole separate thing.
She's a muse of ALW.
She sounds good singing the Lord's music.
She's done like a Phantom medley, like at some whatever in the UK. Like, she's very.
She sang like "Don't Cry for Me, Argentina." That performance of her singing "Don't Cry for Me, Argentina" is pretty iconic.
Like, she sings a lot of his stuff, but I just don't see like with what is currently
like
out
worthy of
and what can be revived. I just don't see her doing anything else, because I also just don't. Not that it wouldn't be as good, because again, we're saying like. Truly, like, one of the best voices I've ever heard. Like, ever heard. But I just, like, this is such, to me, like, a one-and-done role. And I almost feel like she kind of knows that. I did see something. So Sunset, like, does not have an out date, but she is only in it until July. So I don't know.
Do you think it will
what
be
that
open-ended, or
means.
do you think, or what do we?
I don't
what are
know,
our thoughts
because
on
in
this?
the West End, like when she was done, it was done, right? So obviously they're
The
gonna go
West End
past.
also does like limited
Shorter,
runs more.
yeah.
Like they're more willing to be like, and it's over. Whereas Broadway loves to open end something.
Yeah,
And sometimes
I mean,
it's just,
here's
like,
the thing. Like,
chop it.
love you so much, Tom Francis, but like he can be replaced. So like that's
I agree.
fine. I don't know. Like, I don't see
Mm-hmm.
Mandy moving up to like the lead spot here. I
Mm-hmm.
feel like she wants that one show a week. I don't know anybody that could do this better than what she's doing.
No,
And
I
mark
know. And
my
also-
words, on November 1st, 2024, she is winning the Tony Award for this performance. Like,
Wow.
I am
Audra Gypsy.
confident.
Audra Gypsy.
Audra's got a Tony. This is
She's
Nicole's
got
only
5.
chance.
She's got 6 Tonys. How many Tonys does Audra have? 6?
I think something like
No,
that. Yeah.
Audra has a lot of Tonys. However,
I just
never
don't.
forget.
I don't see how a performance can be better than
No,
what
I
she
know.
was doing. I just don't.
No,
I just
she's
don't
slaying.
see it.
She's doing everything. She is. What did she say at one point? Like slay mama. I don't know.
Something like that.
Something so like work. She says stuff like that at some point. We were cracking up. It was way funnier than I
It was
thought it was
funny.
funny. It was really no. It was. I was peeing. I was laughing. I did like honestly like I teared up at moments, but I was laughing more than I
yeah.
was crying.
Yeah, same.
And yeah, I don't know. I don't know if someone of her caliber or who occupies the very specific place that she occupies in the entertainment industry, like there's not many people who kind of are at that exact level of like extremely talented and their career has like not quite matched up to their talent. I don't know how many, I mean, I'm sure there are, but like, I don't know who else there is. And also like, we say that and people are like, you're so rude to her. No, Jamie Lloyd said this to her face in a featurette. Like, I was watching an interview and he was saying this to her face.
Also, like,
And I was like,
she
dang,
knows
okay.
this. She
No,
knows
she knows.
this.
Like, she's aware. She's very self-aware. She's self-aware about this.
And that's why
Her dream
she's
was
an
not to be a
icon.
judge on The Masked Singer, okay? That's not her life dream.
No, like, Jenny McCarthy's dream was to be a judge on The Masked Singer, but not
yeah,
Nicole's.
that's perfect for her. Like, Robin Thicke.
Robin
Ken
Thicke's
Jeong.
dream. No, she truly, like, she's giving an iconic performance, and like, I would be sad to miss her. I'm sure Mandy is gorgeous, but I would be so sad to miss her.
Yes. I would go again. I would pay what we paid.
Same.
And see it again. And there's also like no vanity to this performance when, especially during that moment where she's explaining the script of Salome and the camera's coming right up to her face and she is just like right
Eyes
in
out,
the camera,
yeah.
like nostrils up, bug eyes. Like she is so committed, and like the lack of vanity in what she's doing sometimes.
Like, to be applauded.
She looks
I
amazing,
know.
though.
Yeah. I hope she accepts the Tony in the bloody
In the bloody black
slip
slip.
dress. Yeah.
Halloween just happened, so we're inundated with everyone dressing up for Halloween as Norma.
including herself at the
Herself.
Heidi
She
Klum
went to the
party.
Rachel Zegler doing the Romeo and Juliet stage door,
And-
just like
and-
as Norma.
Also, the girl that's currently playing Eurydice in Hadestown,
Yeah,
same thing.
I saw that.
So good, so good. Okay.
If I had anywhere to go, catch me in that blood. If I had anywhere to go on Halloween.
I mean, you can do it. You've got the like straight black hair, so like let's
Yeah, I
go.
have to like really pin straight. I would like really like laminate those brows, I think.
And like very muted makeup, and then the blood,
Yeah.
obviously.
Nicole said it's corn syrup is what they use.
Oh, so it sticks a bit. That's good.
Yeah, because it's like ends up everywhere. And if you've ever seen like a video of the bows, you see them walking around the puddle of blood on the ground. They're just like, oop.
Yeah, exactly.
It's funny.
Okay, we cannot talk about this production without talking about the music in this show. Everybody can say what they will about Andrew Lloyd Webber, but that man knows how to write orchestrations and music and everything. And the reorchestrations of this specific revival are so gorgeous. It's a 17-piece orchestra, which I was about to say, I don't know the last time we've had a big orchestra on Broadway, but I literally saw Sweeney Todd that had 36 pieces, and this felt
36!
bigger.
That's crazy.
Yes! And this felt bigger.
That's so many. Even probably Once Upon a Mattress also probably had a big one. I don't know exactly. There is a website, I don't remember what it's called right now, but that lists all the musicians and the like number of musicians
That's
in each
great.
Broadway show, and I'll send it to you because it's very interesting.
I do want to shout out a couple just like orchestra moments on the cast recording because I think they are so
please.
iconic.
In the cast recording, that's what I keep jumping to, the music, like the score. Like the
It's
singing
so
is beautiful,
good.
but when
It's
when those strings are going.
And the brass, like, oh my God, it's so good. So obviously we'll start with the overture. If you've never heard like the theme of Sunset Boulevard, there's like the With One Look, like Norma's theme. And then there's that like, like it's so powerful. I think it's one of his best scores ever, and like
wow.
I love the Phantom score at moments. I think it's so gorgeous, but there's something so different about this. I do hear a lot of Phantom. I hear a little bit of Cats in this at certain moments. A lot of people are saying that they hear Love Never Dies in this, which is interesting because that was obviously later. This is a later score for him because this was 93. He had so many 93. Like previous to that. And then one of my favorite orchestral moments in the entire show is the car chase. That's when we get my literal favorite scene of the opening title sequence. It's so big, and on the cast recording, so great. It's a live cast recording, so that also sounds that way. I was playing it for Corey the other day. He was like, "This is what it sounded like live. Like it's really good." And then I'll scroll all the way down to the Entr'acte, which is also gorgeous. Obviously, With One Look is the first big like Norma song in Act 1 that is so beautiful. And then we go into like my favorite like sequence, which is the arrival at Paramount, Norma at the studio, and then all the way into As If We Never Said Goodbye. It sounds so cinematic, and I know that like that's on purpose because obviously it's about like the film industry, but like it feels so old Hollywood to me. And the like sweeping string section is like, this is gorgeous music. Like it is so beautiful to listen to. And then I don't know how many people are going all the way into the 38 track cast recording, but to me, the most iconic score moment is the phone call.
The phone call. I know. I was just going to say the phone call. Because, it starts with the phone call and then it goes crazy.
It's literally, it's a drum beat and then it goes into that like, and
so the way it's staged is,
the staging is also crazy.
The way it's staged is like Joe and Betty and Norma are all just like running around the stage, kind of just like hitting walls and then running, almost like they're doing like a gym exercise. I don't know, but they're just running, chasing. And then like when they all...
Well, so it goes to the Norma's theme of the like, da, 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 and that's when it's the big...
And it's like everyone, the whole ensemble's on the thing, and then the screen goes red, and everything's in black and white so far except for like the title basically, and it just goes red, and it like backlights everyone, and you're like, ah! I screamed internally. It's really beautiful.
Like, I literally think this specific, like, orchestrations is some of the best sounding music I've ever heard in a theater, ever. Like, ever.
No, it sounded so
I've
rich.
seen so many shows, but nothing has sounded the way that this sounded. Especially in the St. James. Like, shocked. I
know. It's a really big house, the St. James, and people have complained about sound there. The last time I was there was for Into the Woods, where I also thought it sounded really good. So, I think if we're just like making it a priority, it's gonna sound good. Like if the people involved know how important that music is, it's gonna sound good.
Yeah. The other thing too is that like so many people because I do think like no matter what we say, if you agree or disagree with us, people hate this production. Performances aside, show aside, like scenic design aside, like if you're there to just listen to the music, this is some of the best music you'll ever hear in a theater. So like the orchestra really nailing it. I do just want to point out, so as I was saying at the beginning of this episode, like this landed in Andrew Lloyd Webber's hands like way a bit later, and then it like he wanted to do this earlier, but then he got very popular and started doing a lot of other shows, so it kind of got pushed aside. But he was working with Roy Disney, Walt Disney's son, to potentially do the music for The Little Mermaid, and that is how he started to write As If We Never Said Goodbye. So that was written for that first, and then it was like, oh, this is too dark for this Disney movie. Gotta use this for something else. And then he recycled it for Sunset Boulevard. And then I had also read that when he had started to work on Sunset Boulevard at the beginning, he was trying to figure out like how to write for this like old Hollywood way and couldn't do it at the time. And that's where Memory came from for Cats. So, I do think he is someone, if anyone is listening that like listens to a lot of his scores, as I was saying, like there's a lot of sprinkles of a lot of the things that he's done in this, but I say what you will about his music, I can't imagine anyone else doing this score. I literally can't.
No. There is a camp level that Andrew Lloyd Webber brings that is necessary, I think.
Like some of the lyrics are straight up bad, but like
those, he's not responsible for those, to be fair. He is not responsible for any of that. Like if we're going to shout out Christopher Hampton, book and lyrics, Andrew Lloyd Webber, composer, we cannot blame ALW for any word said.
No, because the composing is iconic, so...
Like, there is something so grand about it, and again, like we've said, like the stage is empty, but it feels so full with the music. Like, the music sets the stage and fills the room so well.
The other thing that we were talking about as we were leaving is that, like, yes, it's been reorchestrated, but it was so interesting to us that this, like, very modern staging still has these very old-timey sounding, like, songs to it. That it was just, like, the juxtaposition of, like, here we over here, here over there. I will say the, like, Betty songs and like the party songs are like a little bit jarring from the rest of the cast recording. They're like da 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 da. I'm like, why are we doing this like weird beat? It's out of nowhere. But
I think 30 years ago, it would have made more sense. Or basing it in
or that's the camp level of ALW.
That is also maybe just the camp level. But yeah, like it starts off and it says on the screen 1949.
Yeah, it's true.
But then they actually make absolutely zero effort for it to look like 1949 in any way.
Can I tell you the comment that I screenshotted today? Because I think we're about to talk about this production in this sense in a second here. Mm-hmm. But I was looking up a comment. This woman saw it. She did not like it at all. She thought the performances were amazing, but like didn't really understand the whatever.
The staging.
And someone commented saying, can you tell me why the show looks like it was set in a haunted Zara? And I was like, wow. Not wrong. Not wrong.
That cuts deep. That cuts deep, okay? To the costume designer, who is Sutra Gilmore, set in costume design.
Not wrong, though, because if you go to Zara's website, the models are posing in Sunset Boulevard-esque positions.
Like, the outfit Tom Francis is wearing for the first bit of the show.
That's a Zara.
Like,
that's a Zara.
Zara UK.
Even the suit that's Zara.
Yeah, it's true. It's true. Maybe it's from Zara. Maybe they bought it at Zara.
It's very street style, the clothing here.
Specifically British street style, in my opinion. Like,
I agree.
The socks, the sweat, like the cargo and the sweatpants, like the big bottoms, tiny tops, or like the layering, like the black and white layering, the little hats.
Yes.
No, whatever called the like beanie that goes above the ears, a little hat, but I will call it a little hat.
I know we're about to move on.
The short pants.
Yeah, but I forgot to mention one thing about the score. I wanted to say that something that is like pretty trademarky, I feel like, of ALW is his like Act 2 big orchestra moments. So as we were saying, the phone call was very similar to me of like in Phantom Down Once More, when like you get that original Phantom of the Opera theme, but it's really dark with big drums. And then also that song in Jesus Christ Superstar. Like, it's not called 39 Lashes, but that's what's happening. It's the big like the big guitar riff. So he's very good at these late
we're building tension.
Yes, late Act 2 like banger orchestra moments. So like it's very, he has the same like, I don't know, outline method when he's writing stuff. And then you get something like that Cinderella, and you're like,
the 11 o'clock number? Me. I get the 11 o'clock number. Andrew Lloyd Webber.
Exactly. But then you see, well, School of Rock, I don't know how you got there. Wizard of Oz.
Well.
That's Cinderella. You came and you conquered, and that was it.
We can't all win, okay?
And we'll see you at your next one, The Illusionist.
Well, yeah, like, okay, let's talk about Jamie Lloyd, I think, because it was recently announced Jamie Lloyd has directed, production of Evita. He's directed This Sunset Boulevard. He's been collaborating with Andrew Lloyd Webber, and it's announced that Andrew Lloyd Webber is writing a new musical, The Illusionists, and that Jamie Lloyd is attached to direct.
And I said, he's holding him hostage. Like, let this man live.
Let Jamie Lloyd live. No, I think Jamie Lloyd loves it. We actually watched the musical with Jamie Lloyd. He sat 2 rows in front of us when we watched it. So that was like, we're like, Jamie Lloyd is here.
And he also gave Nicole a standing ovation.
He did give Nicole a standing ovation. But when I saw the news that he was going to be directing Andrew Lloyd Webber's new musical, I said, this is really interesting to me because everything we've seen Jamie Lloyd do so far has been reinterpretation and revival. And I am really, really curious to see what is his interpretation. If he is the first person to get their hands on something and he has nothing to reference, what is his vision?
Yeah,
if
true.
he and maybe it's just the same thing, like, because there is a similarity in the staging of most of the things he's done if we're comparing it to the Romeo and Juliet that's just happened or the Doll's House that was on Broadway before. You know, he has a style, he has specific things that he always likes, but like I've been saying, like, I feel like those productions are all in conversation with previous productions or previous knowledge that we have of those shows. What happens if I go into a Jamie Lloyd show and I have no prior knowledge of anything? Like, there's not a cultural context for this yet. What is he able to do?
Well,
and I'm really interested.
Well, this is why I think it's a bit risky to work with Andrew Lloyd Webber again, because that man is like a walking yield sign. So like anytime he does something that's like new, or even anything that he does, it's always like, question mark, like, is this going to be good? So I'm surprised that, like, unless they've been talking about like a vision together, is there any sort of like sentence about what like the Illusionist is? Because we know that, like, right before we jumped on here, you were saying that Jamie Lloyd is now doing like a season with the Shakespeare something, Royal London.
Yes.
Royal Drury
in July
Lane.
It was announced. Yeah, the Theatre Royal Drury Lane returning Shakespeare's work to the venue for the first time since 1957. So he's directing the whole season. It's 2 shows. But he's doing The Tempest with Sigourney Weaver as Prospero, starting December, and then Much Ado About Nothing with Tom Hiddleston and Haley Atwell in February. So he's doing those 2 Shakespeares. We've seen him, or not, we personally haven't seen him, but he's definitely done Shakespeare before this past summer with the Romeo and Juliet.
What was the one that he did with what's his name? That was at St. Anne's?
Yes, not Shakespeare, but Cyrano de Bergerac with James McAvoy.
Sorry.
And
yeah.
What I've heard is this was Jamie Lloyd's best work. Like, I've seen people say that this Cyrano de Bergerac is kind of
also
not what put him on the map, but people love this version of Cyrano de Bergerac.
Based on photos, the costumes are in color, so not black and white.
So interesting. You know,
but,
he's changed, he's evolved.
Okay, I did find something on The Illusionist, and hate to tell you, but like, it's gonna be about magic.
I mean, I'm shocked, but go on.
It says The Illusionist.
It's actually about the magic show that comes to Toronto every Christmas.
No. It's co-created with Chris Terrio, who wrote the Oscar-winning Argo and Justice League. British songwriter Bruno Majors also attached to the musical, and Michael Harrison will co-compose. Magic will be involved in the show. Speaking to Deadline, producer Harrison said, "Whoever the magic person is, and we don't know who it is yet, they'll be heavily involved because it's very important. Obviously, if you're doing a show called The Illusionist, there have to be good illusions." He said that the musical could premiere on Broadway or in the West End, but would prefer the latter. And it's partly based on the 2006 film of the same name, which is set in Vienna in 1900 and follows a disruptive magician. Here's the thing. Have you ever seen The Prestige?
I love The Prestige, but yes, I've seen The Prestige.
If it's going to be anything like that, I'm ready. Let's go.
I never saw The Illusionist, which came out like the same year as The Prestige, but The Prestige...
Iconic. What a film. That's a film.
That's a movie. Christopher Nolan, you did that.
You did do that. Scarlett Johansson, Christian Bale, Hugh Jackman, you did that.
You did that. Piper Perabo.
I don't know. I think like could be interesting to do for Jamie Lloyd to do this. I'm just like, I don't know. It is hard to say like what his exact style is. He hasn't always worked with cameras, right?
Not that I'm aware of, but this is the first Jamie Lloyd production I've seen in person. Obviously we know there were cameras in the Romeo and Juliet this summer. I don't think there were any in A Doll's House.
No, we just saw the videos of Jessica Chastain like leaving.
Walking out to the Museum of Broadway, just like leaving.
Yeah.
He loves to send people to the streets.
You know.
He loves to send people to the streets.
But I do want to say, because, like, obviously,
which
like,
we haven't even talked about.
I also, sorry, I don't think we ever said that, like, yes, we keep saying his name, but Jamie Lloyd directed this production of Sunset Boulevard. He's also, like...
And he doesn't let you forget it. He does not let you forget it.
Yes, especially in the on-track opening video. Like, his name is plastered everywhere. I'm surprised that the show cup doesn't say Jamie Lloyd Productions on it.
No, I know. I mean, from the opening credits during the car chase scene, where... you know, it says a Jamie Lloyd production, directed by Jamie Lloyd. During the entr'acte where they're using the Jamie Lloyd mugs. The scene where they're writing, they're using the Jamie Lloyd mugs.
They left the stage door wearing Jamie Lloyd Productions t-shirts.
Yeah, even that, like, I think it's really interesting. And I feel like part of that is they never want you as the audience to forget you're watching a show. They're, like, kind of breaking that wall over and over again with, like, references to the fact that, like, this is fabricated.
Here's the thing too.
Created.
It is an ATG like produced show, but it is his production company. Like not other shows do this. Like this is one of the only shows that has like the director that has a production company. Maybe the only show. I do want to talk about what you just said. I was saying this a bit earlier. My favorite like Tom Francis non-acting, not even speaking scene is that opening credits where he's holding the camera as a steering wheel.
Yeah.
I would never think to have opening credits in a show, but obviously when it's based on a movie, it makes so much sense. The only other time that we've ever seen a title card in a theater is for Jagged Little Pill. And
excuse me, Les Miserables? When they project
but the projection it's not as like iconic as
it's
like
different. It's different.
Jagged when they rolled in the screen was iconic. And then this was so like in your face because the screen is the best quality projector I've ever seen in my entire life.
It's really clear.
But I just thought it was like brilliant. You can see the picture online. They have a production photo of Tom Francis holding the camera, and then his face is like blown up huge in the background. And that is like, I just feel like both Tom and Nicole, from what I've seen in interviews, like worked really closely with Jamie for those like camera sequences to make sure that they were giving what he wanted out of that. It's interesting to me in this sense because yes, he directed a musical, but he also directed a movie, like in this room.
It is on camera work, but the thing is like, it's live, and
I know
it's all the camera work. There are a few moments that are pre-taped. Artie's single tear pre-taped. Yeah. I assume, or like the scene in the opening credits where Nicole's on camera. I think that's also pre-taped. But for the most part, everything you see on camera is being created in the moment. On that day, like live camera feed. What I loved about that opening credits, like car chase scene is it was hard to figure out where to look. I didn't even realize opening credits were going because I was so focused on what the ensemble was doing. And I was like, okay, what am I watching? What am I looking at? But what I loved about that and what I think is kind of maybe the thesis statement of this production is you are watching the actors create something and then at the same time you are watching the final product on the screen, and you are and seeing the difference between those things is I think like what we're trying to get at in this production. You are seeing him, you know, you're seeing like the artifice of him creating this car chase moment, and you're seeing the ensemble behind him creating like the trees and the rain and whatever's like passing behind him, making him look like he's going fast and the way he's moving it. And so you're seeing it fake kind of being created in front of you, and then when you see it on screen, you see that final picture where it doesn't look like it's just dancers like running around behind him. Well, it looks like he's driving a car, and to see them side by side like at the same time, and you're like understanding it's fake but it's real, or like the line between what you see on screen and what is behind the scenes is like blurred, and I love that. That's
what I was just about to say is that like I think it's pretty like common knowledge just from like the internet and social media that like people are obsessed with the behind the scenes element of everything these days. So to be able to watch a live performance where they're giving you a behind the scenes view as an audience member, but then as you said, also broadcasting that final product, like what a genius concept. Like that is so smart to me to let you in on the behind the scenes action, but then also show you that this is what it looks like. It's the same thing of like the opening of Act 2. Like, let's talk about this. This is the most iconic moment in the entire show. And like, it was so interesting sitting in a theater where I feel like in our row, we were the only people that knew that it was coming because everybody else was just like paid a lot of money for their tickets and were happy to enjoy the ride. And it was like, you didn't watch the 5 TikToks like 10 minutes before you got here like we did.
I know the route. Yeah. I've been
There's a plan A and a plan B. Like, what are you talking about? We got plan A. Lucky us.
Plan A. No, it was perfect. It went perfect the night. Not like the nights before where, you know, people were run over, but
it's so interesting because like I know that they had like many like dreams for that sequence in New York. You're in New York City, like you want to use your space as much as you can. When it was in London, like they didn't go as far as they could have because
they
like
kind of like circled, it felt, in London.
But like there's no iconic like landmarks like right where that theater is, so it was like like it doesn't really make sense to us to like go as far as we could. I watched a clip of an interview, Mickey Joe Theater, who I watch a lot of his videos. He's very good online. Like highly recommend listening to him. But he did an interview with one of the producers from Sunset Boulevard who was like winning an award in the UK. And there was talks of having Tom Francis on a scooter, like an electric scooter at one moment to actually go into Times Square.
To go farther.
And the only way that they could do that was to get him on like a vehicle because the song is not long enough for him to walk all the way into Times Square. So for anyone that knows the New York area, his Plan A route is to go through like Schubert Alley, where it
seems he always goes to Schubert Alley. Plan A, Plan B. He's always in Schubert Alley.
To walk through like the Hell's Kitchen route, which is the Schubert Theater,
and kind of go right up to the poster of Sunset Boulevard.
Yeah. And then Plan B is to go like a bit further to like Sardi's
he crosses a little
area.
Later. I think the major difference between Plan A and Plan B is Plan A, the ensemble goes to Schubert Alley. Plan B, the ensemble stays across the street and just like kind of meets him at Sardi's, depending on the crowd level at Schubert Alley. For me,
go ahead.
I think for me, like back to kind of the contrast between what you see on camera and what you see being created in front of you, the most thrilling moment of the night was when he burst through the doors of the theater and you had been watching him on screen and you've been kind of creating this scene. And then he's all of a sudden in front of you. Like I pointed, I was like, he's there. I was like, he's there. Like, no, it was thrilling. Like you've been watching him and it went perfectly like the night before. Apparently there was incidents. The camera lost him. It was a disaster. But the night we went, like Schubert Alley was empty. Everything went like according to plan. The ensemble met him in Schubert Alley. We came in on time. Everything was great. So to watch it kind of play out so seamlessly and to be watching him on screen with Nicole, and Nicole's on stage, kind of just like looking up at the screen.
And
so you're watching
David
together.
Baxton is with her as well.
He joins at one moment.
Yeah.
And I don't even remember when he joined because like
I don't even know when she got there. Like I have no idea when she got there.
As he was crossing the young Norma to the exit, that's when kind of Nicole came on stage.
Okay, I do want to talk because I do think that has Jamie Lloyd written all over it as like a huge direction moment.
The cross.
That to me was so powerful of like young Norma does not exist in his real world. He's never met this younger version of her, yet she is haunting his like dreams basically. And
I wonder if she's an invention of like I'm guessing she's an invention of this production. I don't know if previous musical Sunset Boulevards have this kind of young version.
But he does this whole like entr'acte where he's going through all of the dressing rooms and then gets his way up to the
and they're kind of like not in character. You're seeing behind the scenes. You're seeing people stretching. Nicole in that moment is wearing a turban. Referencing the movie
cutout,
the cardboard cutout, or her lipstick on her mirror says "Mad About the Boy," which is a reference to the movie, like the cigarette case. David Thaxton looking at the picture of the Pussycat Dolls in the mirror. We're kind of like slowly getting back into the world of Sunset Boulevard. It's not in character.
So for that moment to end with him, which gets him right back into character of crossing that young Norma, it's so cinematic and eerie and beautiful. And then he goes outside and he does this entire opening number. And like, as you said earlier, like shout out to the crew, but like shout out to Tom Francis for singing at full power in the streets of New York City.
Shout out to the sound engineer.
It sounds perfect. Like you cannot hear wind, you cannot hear a siren, you cannot hear anything. And shout out to the security team because they're really doing the most outside.
They kill me because they're the ones who check your bags going in. They're the ones guarding the stage door at the end of the night. But they have one job in the middle of that show.
To keep people out of the cameras.
Out of the way. They're killing me. They kill me.
And it just
famous.
Yeah, exactly. But it all like everything comes together to create this incredibly powerful moment that not a single other show ever to do. And I'm sure there's been hiccups, but like it works so well.
It's
I can't
really
wait till the winter because New York is a lot colder than London is in the winter. So
Dave debuted jackets at one point,
and
sometimes
he's debuted an
umbrella, which he used the umbrella a lot in London, to be fair.
Well,
because it's very rainy there, but he carries his own umbrella.
Yes, I've seen the stage manager give it to him like on the way out
of
the theater. Yeah.
Yeah, like there's so much like concentration on what to do. I want just like a really in-depth interview with him, with Jamie Lloyd. Yeah, like we actually are only going to talk about the walk. We're only going to talk about the walk.
And Romeo in and Juliet.
Yeah,
nothing else.
That as well.
Nothing else.
That as well. We're only talking about the walk. I just want an in-depth interview into what are you thinking about every night? Like, what is going through your mind at every moment? When you first heard this was going to happen, when you were first like rehearsing the show, we're going outside. Okay, what were your thoughts? How did this go? What was the craziest thing to happen?
Do you feel nervous? Like I would, if that was me, I would just be looking around at everybody. I would not be focused at all. I would forget the words. So it would be horrible.
I listened to him on a podcast and he told a story about they ran into a bachelorette party one night and they were like really drunk. I'm like dead. It's just unpredictable. It's funny.
I saw something on TikTok recently that like apparently there was this like older rich woman in like a fur coat that was like determined to get into the show.
She like wanted to be in the show.
So now that people know that this is happening, there's sometimes like quite a line outside like watching the walk.
What makes me laugh in the TikTok videos is once the ensemble starts walking back to the theater, everyone just follows them. They just follow them back to the theater.
Yeah, I know.
It makes me laugh. It's really funny that they just like
really good.
They're like a parade back to the theater of people.
Yeah. So that's that. And then the other moment that like we just talked about is that like flash of red, like the phone call sequence. And then obviously the murder scene, I just think is stunning, the way that they do it. The way that they use the lighting to go full blackout in the theater is, and not for like 2 seconds. Like,
no, it's long.
We're dark for quite a while, and then you see like almost a strobe flash of blood on his body, and then we're dark again, and then we see another strobe flash, and then we're dark again.
Like staggering.
And then you get lights up, and she's just standing there alone on stage. It felt, and I mean this in like the highest compliment, like a horror movie in person.
From the beginning, 100% agree. From the beginning, the way that they were doing those extreme close-ups on her face, I was like, okay, we have this like kind of film noir aesthetic, but also horror. The way that the camera gets so close to her face and the way that the lighting, it almost felt in ways to me like Blair Witch Project and like Paranormal Activity almost. The way that the camera is capturing her and sometimes Joe and sometimes even Max, but specifically Norma in that like Salome sequence felt so horror to me. And then when it comes back around in that ending, there's always like this like layer of uneasiness throughout the whole show. No matter what they're doing, you're just like tense. You're tense.
Well,
and then it pays off like right at the end with that horror finale.
And
gory.
I will say,
it's gory.
It is gory, and it's also like, I will say, cameras are not used for 100% of this production. What would you say is like the percentage if you were to put one? Like,
oh, that's a good question. I'm not sure.
I don't even know if it's 50.
50?
Maybe 50. It's definitely like less than I thought it was going to be.
It didn't feel like, oh, everything is on
watching
camera. It did feel like a lot of things were intentional. Again, back to what you're seeing in person versus what you're seeing on the screen was often kind of a different framing of what you were seeing on screen was a different framing, a different perspective of what you were seeing, on stage in front of you. Like a scene, what was it at the New Year's Eve party where Joe and Betty are talking and Artie is there, and like we're circling and like the angle you're getting like full.
That was
Artie.
good. That was really good.
That was good. And like you're creating this like tension and this kind of like jealousy and this this triangle.
Joe and Betty, like, from our perspective of seats, like, Tom and Grace were not even looking at each other, but based on what we saw on screen, they were looking at each other.
Yeah.
So, like, it was very interesting. But I was going to say is that, like, what we were talking about here about these horror moments, sometimes the cameras were used, but sometimes they weren't. So the horror and the tension goes all the way back to that New Year's Eve party when... Do you remember? I'm pretty sure I jumped. There have been 2, when we went to New York, confetti moments that got me. One at Cabaret... That one, like, emotionally got me. And then one at Sunset Boulevard when, like, there's, like, a moment when he says that he's going to leave to go to the New Year's Eve party with his friends. And the confetti just, like, conveniently pops so loudly. So that also creates the tension. But then that next scene when it's, like, he gets the
almost
call
like
from
a
Max.
gunshot.
Yes, exactly. He gets the call from Max. We see David Thaxton, like, on the screen when he says that Norma's cut her wrist. And then she just, like, walks out with, like, the bandages on her wrist. I'm like... This woman is crazy. This is like a horror movie. So it's I really like I really appreciate the direction here on this.
Even the like not showing the blood, but even the not showing of Cecil B. DeMille, like having it be kind of this ominous presence, this like voice and a silhouette.
It felt like, you know, when you see, like, a news story that something's gone wrong and the person is like, I've tried to be anonymous, so they just, like, blur out, or, like, have the silhouette, but the person's giving, like, a very traumatic retelling. That's what it felt like to me.
Yeah, it was, like, I don't know, this, like, larger-than-life figure, and you're feeling their presence, and... But you don't see their face, you can't see them. I was, like, I was unsure who was playing it, but, I mean, I figured it after, but I was, like, I thought it was the actor who played Max, which doesn't make sense, because it was at the same time. Just based on, like, voice and yeah, like, that creation of, you know, you're not quite sure what you're seeing, or you're unsure of what's happening. You don't have a full picture of what's going on. And it just keeps creating that tension. And that scene leading up to Joe's death, no cameras. That's just kind of the 2 of them on stage, like, having that tension. And then when you come back, what I found interesting exactly. She's on the screen, but this is the first time where you're not seeing the camera. So I
don't even know where that camera was.
It must have been, like, on the balcony somewhere, like, but the quality was so good. It
was crystal clear, and then they were zooming in slow on her when she's, like, pouring his blood all over her body. Like, it was iconic, but then it's so funny because then you also get these moments, which, like, also happen in a horror movie, of, like, levity and, like, happiness when she does sing As If We Never Said Goodbye. It's this very, like, light and airy spotlight on her when she is talking to Hog-Eye, who puts the spotlight on her and says, let me take a look at you, and you get the wind machine, and it's, like, beautiful and dreamy, and then it's like, oh, no, here's the dream sequence, we're gonna cut that and go back to the tension. I could literally, like, talk about the set design all day on this show. This is why I said when we talked about it in our last episode, like, I would die to see this again because there's 10 million moments that I missed.
I want to, like,
and
pay attention.
Every viewing, I'm sure you would see something different because there's so many things to look at any moment of this show. So, yeah. And then obviously you get that final scene where, as you said, she's, like, talking to the cameras. You get the most iconic Norma Desmond line there ever is of, I'm ready for my close-up. Huge orchestral moment. And then it brings us back into the end of With One Look when she says, like, I'll be back again. Yeah. And then lights out. And I was just like, I felt like, again, we had been watching a movie being made in front of our eyes, but then also seeing how it played out. And then literally the most thrilling thing to me, which I knew was coming because of the West End, the credits, like the rolling credits at the end. Like, I, like, obsessed with all of the little, like, things that they did to make it feel like an actual
like movie. A cinematic experience.
It's so smart. It's such a big movie that came out in, like, the 50s. So to bring that cinematicness into a Broadway theater, like, I would expect nothing less. Yeah.
And even just to jump back to that final scene again, like, the fact that every other time we've been on camera, for the most part, we've been able to see the camera. And in that final scene, you cannot see the camera. You don't know where it is. It almost plays into, like, is it real? What's happening? What's not happening? Like, her madness. Every other time, like, the audience has been able to...
That's maybe why I was confused.
No, like, every other time the audience has been able to kind of comprehend what's happening. And in this time, the audience is also not being let in on the process the way we've been let in on the process for the rest of the show. And so you're, like, put on... kind of broken the contract that we've had for the rest of the show. And so you are like, is she mad? Is she on where is she on camera? What is she seeing? What am I supposed to be seeing? And it like puts you off in that moment. And she's kind of just like, and when she says, I'm ready for my close-up, you get a close-up. Like it feels thrilling. There are so many moments that feel so thrilling in this show.
It's also interesting because, like, again, direct from the movie, so much of this script is like direct lines from that original movie, but she has a line in that final scene when she's talking to the reporters, when she says, like, even the people out there in the darkness, and she's talking to us, like, as the audience. And when Gloria Swanson does it in the movie, she is looking down that barrel of the camera and she is talking to you. So I just really, like, again, like, having seen the movie after, I really appreciate, like, the work that Jamie Lloyd did in taking moments from the movie and bringing them, like, to life on stage. Because I'm not sure that that's happening in other iterations of this musical.
My guess is the book and the script is, like, pretty similar. I would be curious to see kind of maybe a more traditional production to just see, like, what is text, what is subtext. I
feel like I would hate it. I think the script is also potentially bad.
Oh, no. I kind of agree. Like, I don't know if this is...
It's not for everybody. Oh, here's the thing. Take everything that we're obsessed with out of it.
Yeah.
This script, bad. The lyrics of the songs, pretty bad. So, like, what are we working with as a base level here?
It's camp.
That's the thing, like, anybody, it is interesting because, like, it did open, the reviews are out, I would say pretty positive. There are definitely some mixed reviews, and then there are some
positive.
There's not that many negative reviews because I feel like a lot of people that are reviewing find something that they like in it. And also, like, the main headline, which, as predicted, is that Nicole's a star, so that's really, like, the
performances
takeaway.
Are, like, great across the board, I think. The ensemble is doing great. Sometimes you lose them for a bit, and I'm like, I want more of you a little bit.
Yeah. But if you're asking me if this would have won, like, Best Book of a Musical, absolutely not. Like,
no.
It's silly.
And that's okay. We don't all, you know. Let's look at its previous times on Broadway and see what awards
I think
happened.
It won Best Musical the first time it was on Broadway.
It did win Best Musical in 1995. Won Best Original Score. Won Best Book of a Musical, Tara. You're a liar. It lost Best Actor, but it won Best Actress, Glenn. Won Best Featured Actor.
Who was the Joe then?
Alan Campbell. I'm not familiar. And George Hearn, I believe, played Max.
Familiar, but never seen.
Yeah, that name does sound familiar. Oh, he won 2 Tony Awards, La Cage aux Folles and Sunset Boulevard.
You know what? I feel like that's why it's familiar.
Yeah, because we've been hearing it recently. Best Direction lost for Trevor Nunn. Best Choreography lost. Oh, I really like the choreography in this. And I'll shout her out.
That opening sequence before the opening number, amazing.
Yes. And also, I just remembered the scene where everyone is dressed in the Norma slip and they're kind of like on the ground.
Sorry, that is also Tom Francis's best moment when he's like, "That's Norma Desmond. That's Norma Desmond. That's Norma Desmond." That scene's iconic. Everyone's somersaulting in a black slip dress.
Yes, it's so good. They're just like rolling around on the floor. The 2017 Broadway revival did not win any Tony Awards or nominated. Yeah. Nothing happened. I wonder if it was just like because it was a similar production to before. I don't know. And now we're back again.
Not actually that good.
Actually,
guys.
no.
That's what people
It was
say.
nominated for a Drama Desk for Best Lighting Design.
Wow.
A Drama League Award for Outstanding Revival. And Outer Critics Circle.
2017? Was it Glenn?
Glenn Close. It was Glenn again. 20 years later, she's like, I'm
Glenn
still here.
Strikes back.
She's like, I am here.
And she wants to do it. Oh, so that was the development in May of this year. Is that Rob Ashford? Is that his name?
Mm-hmm.
That's the guy that did like Chicago, right?
I think so.
He's no longer attached to this project.
Okay, well.
That was the update. And it was
Not
like,
to,
ooh,
not
yikes.
to say Glenn, and like, obviously it is about an older woman, but, you know, 80 is different than 50. Like,
I mean...
How young a man are we talking?
As far as I'm concerned, like, Glenn, if you want this to happen, like, do it yourself. Let's go.
She's trying. She's trying.
Put up the cash. Get yourself a cast. Why doesn't she direct it?
She should. Honestly, she should. Mr. DeMille.
I'm ready for my
close-up. Who plays Mr. DeMille, though? If you don't have the real Mr. DeMille.
It doesn't. We didn't even see him in this production, so it doesn't really matter.
No, I know, but like on screen, it's different.
I don't know. I don't know who Joe would be. I don't know. Who's like a 50-year-old actor that everyone thinks is hot, you know? Like Brad
50?
Pitt.
He's got to be 50 to be age appropriate with Glenn.
Before we wrap this up, I quickly want to talk about two other directors. One we've seen, one we haven't, that are also doing these like avant-garde style performances. The one that's currently on Broadway is Romeo and Juliet, starring Rachel Zegler and Kit Connor, and it's directed by Sam Gold. This is at Circle in the Square. A lot of people are saying that they like this one better than the Jamie Lloyd, Tom Holland. Yeah. Oh, something we didn't mention. You brought it up way earlier. The side microphones. Jamie Lloyd's style is when you die or when you are no longer written in the script, you remove your microphone.
Take that microphone. You're done. You take the microphone off.
Yes.
Yeah, I do think it's interesting, especially to talk about Sam Gold because he has this Romeo and Juliet production on Broadway. Because Jamie Lloyd had this kind of much maligned Romeo and Juliet production in the West End. Like, nobody liked it.
No.
And like,
but I'm also like, is that Jamie Lloyd's fault or is that Tom Holland's fault?
I think it's, well, I like Tom Holland. I think it's Jamie Lloyd's fault.
I love him too, but do we like him in Romeo and Juliet?
Didn't see it, can't speak to it, but I'll have my hypothesis. Jamie Lloyd has a specific style, and he's willing to shoehorn any show into that style.
Right.
I don't know if any consideration was given to, does this suit the material? Is this elevating the material, or is it not? Like,
but could we not make the same argument for Sam Gold right now?
I think we could. I'm not there. I haven't seen it. I've never seen a Sam Gold production. I've only seen a Jamie Lloyd production. So I'm, trying to envision, this style on something like Romeo and Juliet, this kind of almost coldness.
Yes.
That there is. And I feel like
it's also the same thing, like black and white or gray, I guess.
Yeah, like very gray, this like British streetwear fashion.
Yeah.
They're like look past each other or like away from each other when saying lines. And for Romeo and Juliet, like you almost need to feel that like love and passion between those characters to kind of like justify. And I wonder if the coldness that Jamie Lloyd brings, and I don't mean coldness as like an insult, like I think
it's his style. Like
it's just like a stylistic thing that's happening, and like darkness and grittiness, and like with that coldness, like if you're not feeling that like connection between Romeo and Juliet, are you feeling that tragedy at the end?
Right.
And I think that's what Sam Gold is trying to do, is trying to create this like young energy, like make it feel like, oh, they're just two kids, they're just young kids having fun in life who are hit by this tragic circumstance. And I think also some people like it, but also some people are like, yeah, I don't know if I'm feeling it at the end either in this one.
Yeah.
I don't know. Like, is it too light? Are they making Act 1 too light in the Sam Gold production?
Well, there's also like a giant teddy bear and like vapes and...
It's like a Gen X version of Gen Z.
They're playing Sweat, like...
Troye Sivan, give me that.
They're playing Charlie XCX. Like, I just don't... I wouldn't take my parents to that version of Romeo and Juliet. You know what I mean?
No, absolutely not. But that pull up.
But also at the same time, we have seen another avant-garde director, Ivo Van Hove. I've seen two productions. I've seen Network, and we saw the... I'm going to call it the 2020 West Side Story.
The Cursed West Side Story. The Cursed West Side Story.
But that one, more of a direct comparison because of the cameras on stage. I feel like the cameras were more intentionally used in Sunset Boulevard than I do in West Side Story. Yeah. And that's not to say that I didn't enjoy that production, because as my first exposure to West Side Story, I was like, what is this? It's crazy. And I think I love it. But he also did that, I think it was in Amsterdam, literally like 2 weeks before we were there, that like Jesus Christ Superstar, Ivo Van Hove, remember? And apparently that was amazing. So another ALW, my God, these men.
there's just something so rich about what ALW is doing, and I also think there's like a simplicity to like the ALW music, and I don't think the lyrics are super complicated. Like, let's say, like, I don't know if we would do this with a Sondheim where the orchestra is fighting for their life to, you know, yeah. and the cast is like fighting for their life to sing. Like, it's just a bit more difficult to like put so many different things on it.
It's like, interesting though, because like I would like Sunset is sung through as well, right? Like a lot of ALW scores are basically sung through, so it's like like his complicated music is so different than Sondheim's complicated music. We've never done a comparison episode. We've talked about it, but I just think there's so much material to like go through. But yeah, it's interesting. But yeah, like the cameras on stage for West Side Story I thought were impactful at certain moments. They also didn't use them as much as I thought they would when we had heard that it was like a cameras on stage musical.
There was a lot of like pre-taped, a lot more pre-taped in West Side Story.
But there were definitely some like super impactful scenes on screen. I thought they were used brilliantly in network, but that's also a show that takes place at a news network, so it made complete sense to me to do that.
It like justified.
That was the first time I saw a walk in the streets of New York with Tony Goldwyn and Tatiana Maslany under the Belasco. But like to see the news cameras, like every time a light was on for the news, we were taking that shot of the camera. So it made complete sense to me to do something like that. The only other time I've seen camera on stage is I saw the 1984. Which is also makes sense because it's like Big Brother is watching you. So
who directed that?
For that. I don't know. But it was very good. That was another one that there was like a lot of warnings on that, and it wasn't as bad as everyone said it was going to be. There was a lot of warnings for like blood, and if you had like high anxiety and blood pressure or heart issues, you shouldn't go. And we were like, ooh, yikes. But it wasn't that bad. There's a scene when they like pull out someone's teeth and it gets pretty bloody. Yeah,
there's like rats. There's like a rat moment.
Yeah. Is it you? I don't think it's Ivo Van Hove, but maybe it is.
I'm trying to find out. It was nominated for one Tony Award in 2018, Best Sound Design of a Play.
That's it?
Yep.
It starred Bryan Cranston.
No, 1984. I'm looking at 1984.
Oh, sorry.
Didn't it start Tom Sturridge?
Tom Sturridge, Olivia Wilde.
Yeah. Reed Birney. Was it the Hudson? Not the Hudson.
Yeah, was it the Hudson?
I think it's like Robert Eek and Duncan Macmillan. Sorry, they wrote and directed it.
Anyway, that's just like the other comparisons that I would have to like kind of similar-esque productions, but like nothing is really the same as what we saw here.
No, this is pretty singular, I think.
Yeah.
Which is pretty funny as Jamie Lloyd tries to do the exact same thing with
every show. Exact same thing every time.
But it felt singular.
Yeah. I think that's all we have on this. Should we
I mean, I'm sure I'll think of 20 more things. But for now, that's enough. That's all I got. Okay, wow, my rating. This is really hard.
Also, everyone should know that most of these ratings are vibes only.
Vibes only.
Yeah.
I'm gonna say 8 out of 10 little black boxer shorts that Tom Francis wears in the final scene. They're really tight. I'm sure he's got like multiple layers and like a strap in there because it's like very
100%.
exposed for him.
Yeah.
But I love it. I'm obsessed.
Yeah. I'm also going to give this an 8 out of 10. I'm going to give it the black slip dress. That's not to say that I wasn't completely obsessed with this production and I would absolutely return. But, like, there's flaws. And the storyline is one of them.
At the end of the day, that book is that book. Like...
If we're talking about the movie, 10 out of 10.
No, the movie was great. The movie's amazing.
But yeah, I would also recommend this production to, like... I think a lot of people, but I would with the like caveat of like, again, going with context, and also if you're familiar with Sunset Boulevard, like don't think that you're going to the same show that you've seen before because you're not.
So the people behind us were like, I saw Glenn Close do it, and we're like,
yeah. We're like, oh yikes, not sure if you're gonna like this.
I saw Patty do it. Okay.
Yeah. And I can't wait till we talk about this again in a few months for our Way Too Early Tony nominations.
I know.
because it will definitely be a topic of conversation in February when we release that episode. But for now, that's our thoughts on this current revival of Sunset Boulevard, and it's now time for our obsession of the week. Okay, Steph, what's your obsession? And is it Wicked related?
No, it's not Wicked related. My obsession this week is something that I recently ordered and organized for myself, and I'm going to show you guys my new Playbill binders.
Oh my god.
So if you guys have seen the official Playbill binders, they're like $40 a piece. And the sleeves that come with are like acid free, and they also have like a little flap on top to protect the Playbill.
Also $40 a piece plus shipping to Canada.
And like that's not happening. So I was looking for an alternative, and I was searching because I just wanted to organize just my Playbills, and I found these mini binders. They're 5.5 by 8 inches, and the sleeves inside, I'll show you, here's my Into the Woods thing, fit perfect. And if you're in Toronto, the Mirvish programs also fit perfectly in these sleeves as well. So it's a 2-inch binder, and what I'll say is it fits maybe about 20 Playbills in each for a 2-inch binder. So I have 2, and they're both mostly full, which is fine. But if I go back to New York, I'll need another binder.
Yeah.
But for now, it's good. I was so happy to like be able to organize it because I just felt everything was languishing in a box, and I wanted to, be able to refer a little more like easily to my Playbills. But I only organized the Playbills from New York, and I didn't organize anything else I have, so those are all still languishing in the box. But I was so happy to be able to do this. I even have some stickers, and I put in the pocket my Broadway Up Close passport, if you can see that there. Just like show and tell.
For audio viewers.
For audio only viewers.
Turning pages.
Anyway, it makes me absolutely so happy to organize them in this way. So, highly recommend organizing your Playbills in cute little binders. I'm going to hopefully decorate my spine at one point, but for now, all my Playbills back to my first ever Broadway show, Billy Elliot, are in binders and being treated with the respect they deserve, as opposed to just being in the bottom of a box, being dug through all the time.
As a hoarder, my multiples are at my parents' house.
I am such a hoarder. It was so bad. I was planning to throw stuff out as I was organizing
I know, and then you didn't.
And I didn't. And I was just like shoving multiple Playbills in the same sleeve. I was like, this is fine. Do I need 4 Wicked Playbills? I don't.
4? I have like 10.
Well, from the same night.
Oh, true.
Like, I don't know if I need those, but it's okay.
Yeah.
So that's my obsession. 5.5 inches by 8 inch Avery 2-inch binders with 5.5 by 8 inch Avery sleeves.
She did have to order them when we were in the States, though, so they aren't in Canada.
They are, but you just have to like pay a duty. I couldn't find them at Staples. Maybe someone can help me find them in Canada for ease.
Staples, we know you're listening.
Staples.
And if you want to sponsor this podcast, we're also willing to accept that.
Please help me. Maybe I'll put some stickers on the outside. Next time I'm in the Broadway Up Close booth, I'll get some like Broadway stickers.
Yeah, cute.
So anyway, that's my obsession this week, my little binders. Tara, what's your obsession this week?
Okay, so to bring back something we just talked about, from one bloody curtain call to another bloody curtain call, a song was released from the Romeo and Juliet that's currently playing on Broadway, and it's called Man of the House. We know Rachel Zegler has an incredible voice, and this obsession is like twofold because like I listened to the song 2 times and I think it's very pretty, but I just wanted to talk about it, so that's why it's part of this episode. I don't really see the vision of how this works in the show because it's Jack Antonoff and it sounds like a Jack Antonoff song, and from what I've seen of the visuals of this Romeo and Juliet, that's not giving Jack Antonoff. So I'm just kind of yes. I'm just kind of curious of how like the music works in this production in general. So if anyone has seen this production, like please let me know. That being said, Rachel sounds fantastic on this. She has such a beautiful voice. I believe she performed it on Colbert this week with Jack. And I saw an interview with them from opening night, and he was saying how, like, when they were in the recording studio, she was, like, basically a one-take wonder because voice of an angel. And he was shocked at how amazingly she was able to just, like, throw out this song. I think the song is pretty. I just am like, I don't get it. And I also have a hard time understanding how, like, modern lyrics are fitting into the Shakespeare text. I just don't really understand what they're going for, but I'm kind of curious. So I think there's 3 songs in it. So this is one of 3. It's called Man of the House.
What I've heard is that a lot of people, and again, I haven't seen the show, but people are being like, yeah, the songs are not really necessary, but it's nice to hear Rachel sing. Like,
okay, so that's like what I got from the vibe of this song, and I'm also like, oh, I would actually be interested to hear her sing more of this style, so like maybe she should work with Jack on something else. But like I just don't know that it needs to be Romeo and Juliet. But then again, I heard him talk like at the opening night, and he was like, I've been working on this for years. And I'm like, you've been working on 3 songs for years? Like, I'm so confused.
Doing what?
I don't know.
So funny.
I don't know. I think it's funny because when Rachel was cast in this, we were like, her Broadway debut is not going to be a musical? What? Why? But it turns out she's still singing.
I do think it's a choice for this to be her Broadway debut, especially because she kind of came to public consciousness playing the same character in West Side Story. So I wonder why she would opt for this, even.
Broadway came knocking and she said, I'm ready.
So there's that.
And
I don't know.
She said Juliet will live and die with me. My next performance will also be Juliet inspired. She's actually going to go into Anne Juliet next.
Yeah, imagine.
I think she could do it.
I think they've been pretty I mean, obviously this is not a serious conversation, but I think they've been pretty committed to having a Black actress play Juliet in all productions. So I don't think they would cast her in this, but you never know.
You never know. New cast changed. Well, they're not going to do it now because they're on the year 3 cast.
Charlie D'Amelio just went in.
Sorry. Speaking of, this is now completely off topic, but Anne Juliet coming back to Toronto for a sit-down production in 2025?
I know. You know,
what?
Like, I am shocked, but for some reason, I was like, did I know this already?
No, we didn't know this.
No, I know we didn't, but I was like, have I heard this before? Did I know this already? I
think we were, like, dreaming that it would come back on tour, but I never thought that it would be a sit-down. I also, again, this is a completely, off-topic conversation, but, like, I'm so interested in what information Mirvish has that's telling them that sit-downs are doing well here, because I don't think they're doing that well here.
No, I know. I'm really curious to see what happens with The Lion King. We haven't even opened the sit-down of The Lion King, and you're already booking a sit-down for 2025. Really curious to see what happens with The Lion King.
That being said, do we think Brandon's going to be in it?
I hope.
As Francois, though, this time, because he was understudy Francois.
He did understudy Francois and understudy Romeo, but I think he went on more as Francois. I hope so.
Maybe we'll dreamcast this in our, what's it called? Year in review.
Yeah. Wow.
Because I've got some, like, ideas. They're gonna it's going to be a full Canadian cast, so that's exciting.
Hope. That is exciting.
Don't get me wrong. Like, I'm thrilled that it's coming back here. I'm just like, question mark? Why? Can't wait to see David West Reed at the reopening of Anne Juliet.
Again. No, anyway. I love Anne Juliet. Can't wait. We thought we were seeing it for the last time.
And it turns out we'll be there.
No. No, we have not. Anne Juliet, you have not seen the last of me.
No. Which means they're just going to get more money out of me. That's all that means. New merch. But yeah, that's my obsession. That's our thoughts on Sunset Boulevard, and that's the end of this episode. If anyone has seen Sunset Boulevard, if anyone's seen Romeo and Juliet, like, please let us know, because I'm actually super curious on both of these things.
Hit us up in the comments.
We've been, like, on TikTok all the time, like, reading and watching people's, like, Sunset Boulevard walks, reviews, everything, and on Reddit. I feel
like we didn't even dive deep enough into the walk, to be honest.
We're going to do the walk, so we'll dive deep enough in that sense. But yeah, I just am curious to know what, like, other people think of this. So, please let us know. And yeah, you can listen to any of our other episodes by subscribing to our podcast. Wherever you listen to podcasts, you can also watch us on YouTube. Don't forget to subscribe and leave us a comment.
And you can follow us on Twitter and Instagram at Off2BOA Podcast with the number 2, or on TikTok at Off2Broadway. See you later.
Bye.